And we're ready whenever you are, Mayor.
Okay. Good evening and thank you for attending tonight's City Council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in the council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raised hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in this meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button and be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
The flag, United States of America, to its republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Here.
Councilor Dilaba, Councilor Fisher.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy. Here. Councilor Powers.
Here,
Councilor Reish.
Here.
Councilor Scamperly.
Here.
Quorum present.
We have one presentation tonight for sales tax update from City Comptroller Angela Gray.
Good evening. Our packet of information this evening was a 12 months of rolling data for sales tax collections within the city of Ogdensburg. And this represents 3 months of non-preempted data and 9 months of preempted data. So we aren't at the point where we've been on this cycle for a year yet, but at the end of next quarter, we will be. Average sales tax collected for the preempted months only is $213,000 approximately per month. We have been receiving our quarterly payments from St. Lawrence County. And the chart that you're looking at that shows February, March, and April, just to tie that back to the consumer spending months, those relate to the months of January, February, and December, and a partial portion of March. So we haven't necessarily even seen the April spending for the year. So any questions?
So it looks like we're going to be below target.
Slightly, yes, at this point.
I didn't hear him.
He was just commenting, Councilor Powers, that he believes it's showing that we are below target. We absolutely are, slightly. The amount that we would need based on a $2.6 million revenue line is $217,000 on average monthly, and we are at $213,000. So 4,000 times 12 is a shortage of $48,000 going off today's data.
It's not all doom and gloom, right? Not there.
No, it's close to target. We have the years young as far as sales tax goes, so we'll just continue to watch it. But the next quarter will be telling, because that will give us our 12 months of history, for which we can see what a 1 calendar sales tax collection cycle looks like.
I know one of the things we're on budget time when we discussed this was the Canadian effect. And now that the border's back open, hopefully summer business will come back. I'm already seeing a lot of cars in the parking lots and things. I know the shipping stores are pretty back selling too. So hopefully that during the summer months we can make up for some losses here.
It would be nice to see.
Yeah.
And just continue to urge our citizens and residents to shop locally for their items.
Right.
So that way it helps with our sales tax revenue.
Any other questions?
Any?
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Angela. We have one proclamation tonight. And this is for the United Helpers. Whereas the Society of the United Helpers began in the hearts of the people of the St. Lawrence County, where the desperate need to house orphan children was identified in 1898, and whereas 10 women each pledged $100 to fund and establish a home for orphan children and destitute women. And were soon joined by 12 churchwomen, ultimately forming the Society of the United Helpers in April 1898. And whereas on May 4th, 1898, the first child was admitted into the United Helpers home, which was originally located on Congress Street in Ogdensburg, New York. Whereas the services and programs provided by United Helpers to all members of the city of Ogdensburg and surrounding communities have continued to expand over the years. And whereas May 4th, 2023 marked the 125th anniversary of the first child being admitted into the United Helpers home. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jeffrey M. Skelly, Mayor of the City of Ogdensburg, do hereby proclaim May 4th, 2023 as United Helpers Day, honoring United Helpers for 125 years of dedicated service to the greater Ogdensburg community. And be it further resolved that I encourage all citizens to join me in thanking the women and men, both past and present, of the Society of United Helpers for their commitment and dedication to our community and residents, and for their contribution to making Ogdensburg a better place. And be it further resolved that a 125th anniversary United Helpers flag was flown at City Hall on May 4th, 2023 in honor of the United Helpers Day in the city of Ogdensburg.
Is there somebody here from United Helpers?
The mayor's going to call him down in just 1 second.
I would like to invite United Helpers COO Stacy Canizio, CEO Todd Amo, Marketing Specialist Benny Fairchild, Marketing Manager Jordan Downing Duke, and Vice President of Human Services Michelle Matthews to join the council for a photo.
Usually go in front. Why don't we move around front?
Whatever works for you guys. Should we position ourselves by the TV so Mike can be in the picture too?
I just had to attest it.
Wonderful organization, ladies. Thank you very much.
Okay, where am I? We do not have any public hearing tonight, so this brings us to personal appearance. At this time, anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Celeste Rothstein. I live at 308 Proctor Avenue.
I'm Dale Sheldon at 322 Grant.
And although Dale and I are only two Ogdensburg citizens, we represent dozens more who are excited about an event that could bring thousands of tourists into Ogdensburg next year. And we're talking about the Great North American Solar Eclipse, which is occurring in less than a year, and Ogdensburg is directly in the path of its totality. This rare celestial event presents an opportunity to attract some much needed tourism to our city. Many other cities in this eclipse's path of totality have already begun planning, and we are here to urge the Ogdensburg City Council to do the same before it's too late. If you're wondering what makes this event so special, let us tell you. A total solar eclipse, unlike the annular solar eclipses we experience every few years, is extremely rare. The last time it happened in this area was 1825. And the next time after this, after next year, it won't happen again in this area until 2144. A total solar eclipse is a much different and much more visceral experience than an annular solar eclipse, where the shadow of the moon passes over the sun but still leaves a bright ring of light around it. The best description of a total solar eclipse was written over a century ago by American writer Mabel Loomis Todd, and Dale will read that description now.
As much as 5 minutes before total obscurity, it may be possible to detect strange wavering lines of light and shade dance across the landscape. The shadow bands, as they are called, a curious and beautiful effect related to the same atmospheric phenomenon that causes stars to twinkle. Then, with frightful velocity, the actual shadow of the moon is often seen approaching a tangible darkness, advancing almost like a wall, swift as imagination, silent as doom. The immensity of nature never comes quite so near as then, and strong must be the nerves not to quiver as the blue-black shadow rushes upon the spectator with incredible speed. A vast, palpable presence seems to overwhelm the world. The blue sky changes to gray or dull purple, speedily becoming more dusky, and a death-like trance seizes upon everything earthly. Birds with terrified cries fly bewildered for a moment, and then silently seek their night quarters. And bats emerge stealthily, and a sense of hushed expectancy deepens with the darkness. An assembled crowd is awed into silence almost invariably. Trivial chatter and senseless stroking cease. Sometimes the shadow engulfs the observer smoothly, sometimes apparently with jerks, but all the world might well be dead and cold and turned to ashes. Often the very air seems to hold its breath for sympathy. At other times, a lull suddenly wakens into strange wind, blowing with unnatural effect. Then, out upon the darkness, gruesome but sublime, flashes the glory of the incomparable corona, a silvery, soft, unearthly light with radiant streamers, stretching at times millions of uncomprehended miles into space, while the rosy, flame-like prominences skirt the black rim of the moon in ethereal splendor. It becomes curiously cold. Dew frequently forms, and the chill is perhaps mental as well as physical. Suddenly, instantaneously as a lightning flash, and an arrow of actual sunlight strikes the landscape, and Earth comes to life again. I doubt if the effect of witnessing a total eclipse ever quite passes away. The impression is singularly vivid and quieting for days, and can never be wholly lost. A startling nearness to the gigantic forces of nature and their inconceivable operation seems to have been established. Personalities and towns and cities and hates and jealousies and even mundane hopes grow very small and very far away.
So that will happen to our town on Monday, April 8th, 2024, beginning around 2:15 p.m. and ending just after 4:30 p.m. Those outside the path of totality won't experience what Dale just described. They'll just experience a partial eclipse. So people will travel to Ogdensburg so that they can experience it. These visitors will include friends and relatives, RVers, campers, eclipse chasers and tour groups, and many others. Communities in the path of such previous events estimated that every household averaged an additional 2 guests, which could be thousands of additional people. So we asked the city council to immediately assemble an eclipse task force, including representatives from the police and fire departments, Parks and Recreation, the Chamber of Commerce, schools, and other organizations to begin to make the Great North American Solar Eclipse a successful event. Dale and I and many others eagerly await word on the Ogdensburg Eclipse Task Force and stand ready to serve as needed. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Bud. What time did you say again? I know it was April 8th.
April 8th, which is a Monday, 8 days after Easter that year. It will be, the partial eclipse will begin around 2:15 p.m. The totality that Dale just described will last about 3.5 minutes. And that will occur, I think, around 3:30 p.m. And then as the, moon's shadow recedes, the moon shadow recedes, it'll last until about 4:30 p.m.
Okay.
Wow. That was wonderful, what you had,
Thank you.
your presentation of both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michael Tooley. I live at 214 Hamilton Street. As a citizen, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. Just a couple of items. One, I asked City Council to support Bill 47 for the hire of school resource officers as requested by the Ogdensburg City School District. And then either under old business or items for discussion, perhaps we can get an update on reassessment. Perhaps you can share information gathered since the last meeting with council. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Jacob Gillette. I'm here because there's a letter being read on my behalf on a purchase of a property. I'm just here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. I read your letter. So based upon your letter, this house is currently pretty much fallen into disrepair, and this is something that you plan to move into yourself. It's not something you're planning to flip and move out. It's something you are choosing to live in yourself once it is fixed up.
Yes.
It's all the house today.
I drove by it myself. It's all boarded up and actually it's a complete eyesore and then a very beautiful block of that street on. So it's it would be nice to see that house fixed up and not have, what is it, plywood across the windows and the grass growing at an ever increasing rate. So it would be great to see that back on the tax rolls, and hopefully we can do that for you.
I'm in total support on that.
Thank you.
Do you do some skilled trades in your?
Yep, I work for the prison maintenance department at
Nice.
Riverview. So
I've restored several homes over the years, and I just find it very rewarding to see an old house and bringing it back. Yeah, good for you.
But it looks like it's going to be an uphill battle for you from the sounds of there's no plumbing left in the house, no electrical left in the house,
Yeah.
and there's some decontamination. So I commend your ability to step up and take another blighted property off of the hands of the city residents. So we appreciate that.
thank you.
Sometimes that's a good.
I have just a couple of quick questions here. These are more for Andrea, I guess. Now, has this property been up for auction already?
Yes, nobody bid on
Yeah,
it.
so can we get, I mean, I don't see any reason why we couldn't possibly move forward with this now if there were no bids on the previous auction, why we couldn't sell to Mr. Gillette.
I'm with you on that one, Mike.
I think we should move on that as soon as we can.
What is the process on that, Kathy? If we were to move forward, is that something we could introduce tonight, or does that require something different from council?
Ask Andrea about
I can't hear.
I need to ask Andrea about what was the bid price on it, the original price that was listed out.
Okay.
To make
Well,
sure that within the market range.
I think
I think I made a pretty fair offer considering nobody bid on it at the auction. and it's falling apart. I mean, it's in a nice neighborhood and, you know, I grew up in that neighborhood and there's not a bad house on it besides that one right now. And I think it'd be good.
I think it's admirable, and I think I'd support this too, if we can make it go, because you're young, you want to, I don't care if you live in it, I don't care if you do it simply as an investment. If you want to take your hard-earned money to invest it in the city, then I think you should get the backing. People have had an opportunity now to bid on it. It sits in a beautiful neighborhood, and if, you know, I think it's time to put it back out there. If you're going to invest the money and we get the taxes for it anyway.
Well, can I make a motion that we sell the property now? Is it proper to do it now? I mean, while Mr. Shalet is here?
I think that seeing that there was no auction, I think we could possibly just do it now by consensus and have Mr. Shalet work with Andrea for the transaction.
I'd like to check with Andrea Smith about.
Is it possible to get that answered during the meeting? I mean, Mr. Shalet came to the meeting.
Able to find what was the listed price of the property at the auction.
Oh, can we?
What's the number?
I knew you would, Andrew. You always have all the numbers in the back of your head.
What is the number? 2,500.
I think that 10 grand is a fine offer then if it's
fine.
listed and it hasn't moved.
We just did this again on Lafayette Street to another person that wanted to buy a piece of property that
And then end
didn't
up
go
going
to
to the
auction.
land bank.
Now it's rotten.
Mhm.
The roof's rotting in, the soffits are rotten in, the fascia is rotten in. It's an eyesore. It's on Lafayette Street.
And we have a young individual who wants to invest.
He may end up flipping 5 or 6, and he's got genes of ability to do this. So
So
he's got plenty of help.
well, I would like to make a motion to sell this property to Mr. Shalet.
Second.
Oh, sorry, Andrea.
I tend to agree with Andrea. Typically, what we would do is prepare a resolution for council's approval, which we can certainly have at the next meeting. Unless council desires to move it tonight. I mean, you can move it from the floor. Just keep in mind that it will require.
Do we have 5
Well,
votes?
I think 10,000 is a fine offer.
I do
We
too,
have
but
6?
I do think there's a protocol and you break it. And it doesn't look good if you break it for someone and then someone else comes along and they don't get the same opportunity. So I think you're going to get it. I'm sure you're going to get it, but I think let staff do the job and do it right.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor, so I would like to vote.
Well, let me just, with the protocols being done, really, I
They've
mean,
already been done once.
it's been up for auction. We've got no movement on any auction. If we bring it up under new business, the protocols have been already met. There'd be no reason not to support it.
And
Just
nobody
5
else has
votes.
expressed any interest.
This is the
You know
ability.
what? Listen, we got 4 now. I'm sure Mr. Shalet to be fine with the fact that we can draw up a resolution for sale of property for him for the meeting in the next meeting in May. And then we get this all wrapped up. Mr. Shalet can start planning accordingly. I'm confident that he'll do a good job with what needs to be done in that neighborhood and that home. I mean, as long as we're all in agreement, the protocols have been met. The house has been up for auction. We got no bites. We've got an interested buyer. Let's get it done.
Yep, I'm with you.
Staff will get it done
Yeah,
correctly for you.
I'm in favor of that as well, and I would ask, we had another offer from Mr. Bracy, and the council didn't do anything, so. Is the council in favor of seeing that one on the agenda as well?
Yeah, let's take that one again.
Yes.
Has it been up for auction?
Yes,
Okay.
We want to be
fine with that.
consistent,
it's
fair,
actually rotting in
but
ground.
Because
I feel
think
comfortable.
The property, what you were discussing was listed at about 40,000 and the offer was far less than that on that particular property.
Oh, yeah.
So
It was the old St. Joseph.
Well, the problem is though, Dean, is that we didn't get it for 40,000, so.
Yeah, it was a substantially large property, close to 2
Yeah.
acres. And
Have we reached out to adjacent homeowners for at a lower rate for that property?
I did not reach out to the homeowners.
Because that's located right next to the new, where they're doing the Ghost Hunters show and really developing that piece of property. It might be something at a lower rate that
I
they'd be
don't think
interested
that
in.
was the one he wanted.
That wasn't it?
No,
Oh, I
it's a
thought,
house.
oh, it was a house? I thought it was
No,
the
it wasn't
vacant lot.
No, it wasn't the old
I think he wants the old,
St. Joe's.
It's the old St. Joe's.
I thought it was.
Why don't we get a little more information on that? But I do want to move forward and sell as much property as we can.
Well, stop the city from having to cut
Let's
it.
work on Mr. Shalet's here and
It's-
have
Yeah.
that ready at least for the next council meeting. Maybe we get some more information on the offer from Mr. Bracy on that other property.
Moving
And move
both.
forward with that as well.
So
All right,
it's the consensus to move them both, right?
Sure.
bring them both forward. So, Mr. Schlott, we will have a resolution for you at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent.
Good evening. My name is Carl Tucci, and I live at 403 North Meadow Drive. I've lived there for 48 years. You have a couple of handouts that Kathy was kind enough to run off for me. Excuse me. And I would like to mention at the beginning that Kathy is, anytime I've ever had to interact with her, has gone above and beyond to provide good service to me. I'm here because I don't think that the recent assessments should have been accepted. I believe they're based on faulty values, faulty premises. And the essence of that is that mortgage rates in 2 years ago were about 3%. And I contacted two banks today, and the mortgage rates are 8.6. And let me just drag my copy out here. And 6.75. Those are no closing cost mortgages from two local banks. I don't see how it's possible to compare properties that were sold at 3% to properties that would today would have to be sold at 8%. You have in front of you the mortgage calculator. And I use it as an example because some of my neighbors had a 100% increase in their assessment. Some of them gone from 100,000 to over 200,000. So I use 200 as the basis for this talk. But it would hold true whether it was 100 or 80. I don't think the percentages were going to change. So if you were to come into my neighborhood, and we have a nice neighborhood, and want to buy one of those houses for 200,000, it would cost you $1,244 a month at the higher rate, and about 1,000 at the slightly lower rate. So about 1,100 a month plus taxes. So when GAR did their assessments of the community, they rated the houses as fair, normal, or good. I don't know how they could do that. They weren't inside any of them. As far as I know, they didn't even drive by any of them. They flew a drone overhead. And I believe they came to City Hall to get square footages. If I'm incorrect about that, please correct me. The second part of this is that it makes it very hard for anybody to go to grievance because the comparables are all flawed. So if you go to grievance, normally you pick 3 properties, you take the average, and if you're successful, the grievance board will lower it to those. You can't do that now. You pick 3 properties that were sold at 3% or 4.5%. So their sticker price is a lot higher than it would be today. I don't believe that this assessment should have been accepted. I understand that today's the day that it sort of becomes carved in stone. And there's another handout that you have there that the first 3 months of this year, repossessions nationwide were up 22%. And that was before several of the recent interest rate hikes. Wouldn't surprise me at all if the same thing happens in Ogdensburg. That as a result of these increased assessments, even if you lower the rate, you're going to see perhaps more repossessed properties. And I'm happy to hear about Mr. Shalet's idea to remodel that home. Because as I drive around town, there are numerous houses that are boarded up with plywood and probably will wind up being torn down. I believe the reason for this reassessment is because you're near your taxation limit, that you can't raise taxes much. I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
No, we were at a little over $20 per thousand. We're now less in Messina. We were at $15.88, and now we're over $16. But we're still not where we should be.
Do we have a total assessment figure for 2023? Can you give it to me?
367 million.
367,057,280.
And do you know what it was for 2022 for last year?
I don't have that number.
286.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
286, 138, 441, approximately.
All right.
About $80 million more.
So in the letter from GAR, they said that the reassessment would not result in any additional revenue. That the purpose was to be fair across the board, and that those who were undervalued would be raised, and those that too high would be lowered. So is the goal here to, whatever the increased assessment is, somebody has to be lowered, I guess is what I'm trying to say. In my neighborhood, nobody's lowered. And I went around city and I drove to people's houses I knew, and there's only one house out of maybe 10 or 15 that's lower. So I question that. If an assessment goes up $100,000, then somebody has to drop some. 5 people have to drop 20,000 in order for that to be true. And I'm wondering why, when the city's in difficult financial situation, or has been, we would spend $200,000 to $250,000 to hire an outside firm. And I suspect that's so we hire the expert from afar, and then we can say, well, it's completely fair because they don't know anybody here.
Correct. Yes.
True. It also gives you some cover.
Well, also, Carl, we had a $6.1 million fund balance at a point, and we had planned on, by doing it citywide, we could lower the tax rate and offset it.
Okay.
Or the majority of it.
Okay.
So that was the goal. Now that doesn't apply to the school or the county. So people still get hit bad. But I mean, these are state regulations that it has to be done so long. We thought also extending out 4 years was a good idea, so people aren't constantly getting reassessed. We've seen that. Some of us have felt it. But there's a downfall when you go out 4 years. It's a bigger hit, if values go up. And it just happened at the worst time because COVID, people were moving here and they had large sums of money because, except for here in our area, property values go up and people have a nest egg, and they took that nest egg and they brought it here and they spent a fraction of that nest egg and they got a home. But we don't get that because of our high tax rate. Assessments are not the problem. The tax rates are. The school tax rate, the city tax rate, and the county tax rate. If these tax rates came in line like other communities, then property values would go up and we'd all be happy for property values. But when your property value gets here with these combined tax rates at $60 per thousand, you can't afford your home. So if we could get a balance back with assessments higher and tax rates lower, if our government, the school, the county would all bring their tax rates down, people could start maybe having a nest egg here down the road after they raise their family and maybe you wanna, anyways.
And I agree with that, but I'm going to leave now in a minute here. But it comes back to interest rate. People pay what the monthly bill is. And at 8.5%, or 3% when some of these sales happen, it's just not a fair comparison. So I don't know how you deal with that. I don't know how anybody goes to grievance when the properties don't reflect the same value today. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Is anyone else?
While we're on the issue of assessment, was the tentative roll filed today?
It is being filed at this moment. I believe the finalization will be done by 10 in the morning. It's already in the process.
So, Doug Loeffler, just to piggyback on what Mr. Tucci presented, Dean, would you say the total assessment was?
367,057,280.
Okay, so GAR sends us all the packet, and quite a few people did their research and went back to GAR. So now if GAR lowers our tax rates, lowers our assessments before it even gets to grievance, okay? So say it goes to 300 million. Where does that leave us by approving the 370 now? Where does that leave us if they come back and lower people's assessments? What do we do then for our tax, for the assessments?
Dean, can you report on how many people filed with GAR? I think it was 700 and some.
684 people submitted applications. Out of that,
Did you say 684?
684. Out of that, 471, which means 68% of the properties received value reductions. Out of that, 213 properties remain unchanged.
Have all the homeowners been notified of those changes?
No.
No.
So
that was my next
question. That part of the process is now done. And that's where that's where that number comes.
So that's the number after the reduction?
Yes.
Okay, so that's, the number you gave us is after the reduction.
After the reduction, so this is the first year.
Yeah.
There is 2 more opportunities.
Yeah.
We took a stop with the assessor. Now we have an assessor.
I can't hear.
So
there is 2 more opportunities left for the assessment to be reviewed. One is with the meeting with the assessor, and then the second is going through the assessment, the grievance day.
So since GAR gave you that information, have they told you when the taxpayer is going to be notified?
As far as I know, they have sent us all the documentation and we are supposed to mail it out.
You guys are going to mail it to us instead of GAR.
Yes. Now
Do you-
it's our responsibility.
Do you know when that will be?
I think there is a review process. Let me ask Andrea, planning, director of planning, whether she has that upgraded information as to when it is going out.
The change of assessment letters will be mailed from the city. They're in their process to getting to us in a digital format. They'll be mailed as early as tomorrow, but probably as late as some point in the day Wednesday. So they'll be mailed this week. People will probably get them this time next week. But the roll will be able to be viewed tomorrow online.
Okay.
And the numbers that the city manager is referring to are from the tentative roll, the total assessed value.
So they'll be able to look online tomorrow and see if their property was reduced if they want to go look tomorrow before receiving the letter. Okay.
So my math works out to about a 28.3% increase in the total value of Ogdensburg taxable properties.
So far.
Yeah, I haven't done that math, but those 2 numbers are correct.
Then there's still 30-some days before even the Board of Assessment review.
Yes.
To meet with the assessor himself.
Right.
Grievance day is June 13th.
Are we extending that?
We cannot extend it by state law.
Okay, so it's 1 day.
Well, grievance day is June 13th. The Board of Assessment Review will have 3 periods of time in which they will meet with individuals by appointment. By law, in accordance with New York State real property law, we have to accept applications, walk-ins, up until 8 p.m. Nothing is allowed to be accepted after 8 p.m. And if those in attendance at 8 p.m. are unable to be heard that evening, the Board of Assessment Review will determine the number and when they will convene again to hear those applications. But the deadline for submitting the RP 524 form, which is required for the Board of Assessment Review, is 8 p.m. on June 13th.
Steve Teal's not here.
No, he's not.
And that form is available right online for anyone who's looking for it?
It's online. It's here in our offices.
Okay.
We've provided them to countless individuals.
Perfect.
Can't they back it up? Like instead of wait till the 13th, have a few more days, like say 5 before, or, you know, I mean, you may have a lot of people that, you know, you
yeah,
take
that's
it
right.
15 minutes and that's it.
That's right. If anybody shows in before 8 p.m. on June 13th,
They will be heard.
then they will be heard.
Yeah, but where are you going to herd them?
Well, they will be given
Literally.
time for the later date. That's,
No, I didn't say here, I herd them. Like, where are we going to put them?
Well, there will be 3 different times. In the past, there's only been 2 times. There will be 3 time slots this year, each 2 hours. We are encouraging everybody to make appointments. By law, you're not required to make an appointment. So as long as you show up before 8 p.m., you will have the ability to be heard. I would encourage anybody that ends up wanting to see the Board of Assessment Review to make an appointment, and we will make sure that everybody gets accommodated on the 13th or thereafter at a time that is set by the Board of Assessment Review.
I just have a hard time with the whole thing because I think our last assessment roll was 96% of market value. And how anybody could, and that's approved by the state of New York as well. I mean, the state sets the equalization rate, and they said it was 96%. So how someone can increase assessments based on that by 20, 28, 29%, just I can't wrap my head around that. I mean, either the state screwed up or I don't know.
There's a lot of flaws with it.
Anyone else?
That's a big one.
Does everyone come up?
Big.
Seems like they're all over the place, to tell you the truth. Some people are happy, some people got reduced, other people are 2-3 times what their assessment was. I mean, it's crazy. There's no rhyme or reason, it seems. I don't know. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I have all the time in the world. I'm here tonight. I have a bone to pick with Hoosier Magnetics. There's a warehouse down by Pearl Street where I live. They store some of their finished product there before it gets shipped out of town, I would guess, which is fine. But in the last 6 years I've lived at Pearl Street, there's a lot of tractor trailer traffic in and out down there. And when I first lived down there, the first 4 years or so, they were driving down Pearl Street, which is residential and it wasn't supposed to take place. The street got destroyed. If any of you go look at it, especially the side without a lot of houses on it, which is the side the trucks had to drive down to make their turn, it is in very bad shape. Since I pointed this out, they started to back down Madison Avenue and they actually back across State Route 68 to do so, which in my opinion is kind of dangerous, but that's what they're doing. I kind of, I'm pro-business, whatever, let it go. But they drive on my yard, some of them, and they tear it up. And it's happened a bunch of times if they can't make their turn. 90% of the drivers don't have to drive on my yard, but the ones that do, and they don't really care. A trucking company out of Norwood, Knowlton and Sons, I watched him do it a little bit before spring break. I don't know. I can't tell you the exact date, but I did contact the police and had an incident report. And I tried to reach out to the company myself, and they swore at me over the phone and said that I was going to get arrested if I contacted them again about my yard. So then I contacted Hoosiers multiple times. I spoke with the plant manager who was supposed to get to the bottom of it, he said, and he would contact me back. He went on spring break vacation, came back, never heard from him. I reached out multiple more times, still never heard back. Today I drove there and just went into the office and met the secretary who I spoke with on the phone all these times. And I asked her if the plant manager was there. And I said it was unfortunate I had to show up there to get this resolved. Another woman who works there came out again and threatened to have me arrested by the Ogdensburg police if I didn't leave, and was very rude to me as well, and didn't want to answer any of my questions or talk to me about my yard. Maybe Hoosier should pay to have Pearl Street paved again or fixed, because the codes department turned a blind eye while they destroyed it. And they should be fixing my yard. They've had a history of destroying property on Washington Street too. We all know, so you know what I'm talking about. So if that could get resolved, I would like it. I would like my yard fixed. If it, it's been almost a couple months. If it can't get resolved, I'm just going to have to fix it and send them the bill. But I don't think I should be threatened with arrests because their carriers are destroying my yard. Thanks.
Is there anyone else? Is there anyone remotely?
Just one moment, Mayor. The first individual is registered as Walter Bracy, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted, sir.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Hi, Kathy. I just wanted to call in and thanks for speaking and just touch base on the property that used to be St. Joe's. Yes, I'm the one that submitted the letter to buy that property. And now you're setting a precedent to sell another property that went up for auction once. The property on St. Joe's went up twice and was not bid on. It originally went up for $65,000. Nobody bid on it. It went up for $41,000. Nobody bid on it. It's assessed and appraised at $23,000. We put an offer in, which was, yes, low, but no, we got a reply 2 or 3 weeks later from the city manager who would like to put it back up for city auction and county auction. If you're going to set a precedent and sell other properties after they haven't been bid on at auction, I think I should be allowed to buy that property first, since we already applied and put a letter in. Thank you.
I would agree.
That's correct. I wanted to even on this matter to be discussed further, because that particular property was put on sale for 40,000 and the offer was about 8,500. And we have to look at the best interest of the city. And I think whatever was trying to sell the property at this moment to this gentleman here who is interested, does not really set a good precedence. We have to factor in other factors like
Wouldn't you agree though that they've already been bid?
Well,
isn't it better to get them on the tax rolls?
A property that was bid at that was appraised for 40,000. If we have the offer for 8,500, and this is a 2-acre property, we can look at other possibilities like providing it to the land bank and build 4 houses there.
Yeah, well, I really don't want the land bank competing with private citizens.
Well, we don't want that. Well, it's not going to get any because I spoke to Mr. Tracy, find out what his intention of the property was. He was going to build a shed there. So it's not going to bring us any revenue to the city on the overall. And I'm not making any favorations here. I'm trying to be a good steward with the resources of the city. And that's why I think what was trying to be done here at this moment is not, if we go on that direction, then
we did the same thing with property on River Street. Everybody had dreams of developers coming in, and the people that bid on it never got to take it. And the other project may not go through. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I think the thing is you just get them into private ownership and have them paying taxes.
Sure. At the same time, I think the local auction did not get as much as I think people involved. That's why we were going to put them into the county auction, where it's going to be at a very different level, and there's going to be more exposure. And again, Councilman, I'm trying to get the best in, to protect the best interest of the city. And I'm not here to favor anybody. Unfortunately.
How many years has St. Joe sat there? And the city's not made one dime off of it, except send people over there to maintain it and pay for the liability of it in case somebody gets hurt on it.
Probably September comes, it's going to be on the county auction. Somebody could buy it for much higher than the price because they
Yeah,
it's
the whole
going to be
county
on a
there.
different road. It's going to be on a different.
When is the county up?
Around September of the year. That's what I was told. So
I'm in favor of moving both properties to the people that have asked for them.
I remember the synagogue and there was an offer of 7,500 and you refused that, John. Then I think Land Bank took it over and put money in it, and now it's viable and been sold. I mean, you gotta be consistent. We gotta be fair to everybody. You know, I think you're gonna get that house because, you know, there's not a lot of people gonna tackle property like that. So, start doing things different for everyone and, you know.
Can't let it just sit there. Like I said, how many years? You don't even know. You know, I mean, it's a lot. I drive by it every day, 100 times.
Yeah.
So is there a consensus to move that, have that on the next agenda as well? Is there a consensus?
it's I would not advise you to do it.
I'm just wondering if there's a consensus.
That's a very viable piece of land.
Yeah, because that's a.
Dan, are you in favor of that as well?
I think that property, I think that individual piece of property is worth more than 8,500. I would like to see Mr. Bracy come back with a counter offer of something a little more. I think 8,500 is cheap for that piece of property when we're asking Mr. Shalat is gonna pay.
$8,500 for that property might be 2 acres of land, but it's vacant land that has a whole bunch of stuff in it that
Is there
they
limited
didn't
use
take
for,
away.
is there limited use for the property?
You put 3-4 homes on
You can
that.
put homes on it.
Well, I didn't know what was.
No, but I'm
what
just saying,
That
you
was
put
before
at
my
least
time.
4.
I'm looking at a guy right now that spent about $5,000 on a 60-foot by 30-foot piece of property. It's a triangle and he takes good care of it and you can't build on it or anything. And that was too much at the time. You know, I would like to sell the property to Mr. Bracy if he's interested in building something on it. I would like to see him come back at city manager and negotiate a price. I do support selling it and getting it on tax rolls. Originally, that property was supposed to be put onto an RFP for a development because it is such a large piece of property. And when we discussed it originally, that's what I supported. And it was about the same time as the mayor brought up when we discussed the synagogue. And we let that one go. And the RFP, I don't think was ever put out there for that property. I do support selling it, but I'd like a little bit more discussion with city manager on that and just see where it goes with the gentleman who wants to buy it. And maybe we can get it to him. So, but right now, just to throw it out, I don't know.
With one aspect to the property at the former St. Joe's, I believe when that was leveled, and I think Councilor Fisher was alluding to this, is the fact that there may be some foundation work and some other things. I think, was that property buried? In other words, was the foundation and structure buried underground with that property?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. So, you know, I mean, what's he going to be able to develop without having to have an excavation crew come in there? That property is a good valued piece of property. But to Mr. Bracy's point as well, we've gone through the auction rolls, we've gone through the protocols, and you know, I'm not keen on 8,500 or whatever the price was that he offered. But with that being said, I mean, we've got some infrastructure problems with that property while we sit on it. And that for any development down the road is going to require, who's going to be responsible? That'll have to be done in the bill of sale. You know, that's problematic.
I don't see any issue with it going forward. I would like to see Mr. Bracy come back with a better offer in the city's interest.
I just don't know that we should be negotiating.
I mean, that's not fair. Bottom line is that's what he feels that he wants.
Someone came forward.
September is not far away to do that county auction. They have good success with their auctions. Okay, I guess we're now at correspondence and
Mayor, I'm sorry, there is one other individual with their hand raised. The next individual is registered as Brenda Hill, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted. Ms. Hill, it appears you are self-muted. Can you hear me? It appears your line is open. Can you hear me? Not sure how you want me to proceed, Mayor. It appears there's an audio issue.
Yeah, we'll just move on. Is there another one after her?
I do not see any additional hands raised.
And that brings us to correspondence. I believe we have one letter.
Yes, given the fact that council has thoroughly discussed this, do you still wish for me to read it? I'm happy to.
I think it should be read into the public record.
Absolutely. Dear City Council members, I am writing this letter in regards to the property located at 712 Morris Street. Please consider this a letter of intent to purchase the property located at 712 Morris Street, Ogdensburg, New York, 13669. I would like to formally make an offer to purchase this property for the amount of $10,000. There were no offers for this property at the most recent auction. This property has had suspected drug activity. I use the term, quote, suspected, end quote, loosely due to the fact that my parents live across the street and witnessed firsthand the activity and traffic in and out of the house. This house is going to need complete interior remediation and remodel for safety due to the actions that went on inside the house. This house has also been stripped of many essential components such as plumbing and kitchen cabinets. Having grown up across the street from this house, it is my desire to bring this property up to code and put it back on the tax roll and to live in it myself. This property has deteriorated immensely since Mr. and Mrs. Denner have passed away, and even more so since it has been sitting empty. I am a working citizen and take pride in our community. Letting this house sit vacant any longer is going to cause it to be less and less desirable for purchase, and eventually it is going to be to the point of having to tear it down. I have the resources and capabilities to bring it back to be a habitable establishment in our community rather than let it sit any longer to eventually have it be torn down. By allowing me to purchase this property now, I can get started and not only use the structure itself, but also the yard, which is also in disarray, which will also save the city from having to maintain it, cutting grass, keeping it boarded up, etc. My offer of $10,000 is more than fair considering, number one, no one had any interest in it at the most recent auction. Number two, it is going to need a total remodel. Number three, it is going to need decontamination due to the suspected drug activity. Number four, it has been stripped of its plumbing as well as other essential components. I appreciate your consideration in this matter and look forward to hearing from you soon. Sincerely, Jacob Chalet.
Next, we have our consent agenda. That the claims as enumerated in general fund warrant number 8-2023 in the amount of $371,045.41, and library warrant number 8-2023 in the amount of $0, and capital fund warrant number 8-2023 in the amount of $33,683, and community development warrant fund number 8-2023 in the amount of $75.98, and community renewal fund warrant number 8-2023 in the amount of $0 as audited be, and the same hereby are ordered moved. Are paid. I so move. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilor Powers,
Yes.
Councilor Reish,
Yes.
Councilor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
We do not have any appointments tonight, so this brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a grant agreement with New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation.
I'll second it.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Powers,
Yes.
Councilor Reish,
Yes.
Councilor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Public Works Director Shane Brown.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a leachate treatment agreement with the Development Authority of the North Country.
I'll move that.
Second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Police Chief Mark Kearns.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Merkley Brothers Heating and Cooling LLC.
I'll move that.
Second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Muhadin Buhari.
I would seek consent on the calendar from the council for resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a school resource officer contract with the Ogdensburg
I'll move that.
School District.
I'll second.
Second.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
No.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Counselor Powers,
With pleasure, yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Muhadin Buhari.
Yes, this is the resolution in support of Senate Bill S 4810A and Assembly Bill 5276A. This would, allows the taxation of state property located in the city of Ogdensburg.
Move that.
Second.
Discussion. Mike, at the task force meeting, not the last one, the one before that, it was a consensus to actually redraft this to reflect the original intent of the council, whereby we were requesting a payment in lieu of taxes from the state of New York for their tax exempt land, rather than a bill that dictates to the state that we are able to tax their property, which I don't think will ever pass. I missed the last meeting. Is that still being worked on?
John, the intent of the original legislation and your resolution is still intact outside of the authority-owned properties and that are receiving tax breaks from the actual authority. That is the only thing that's being omitted from the actual legislation other than the original intent. Now, that's what caused for the amendment. The consensus of the task force was for me to reach into Senator Walczyk's camp, explain to him the situation, keeping the intent of the resolution the same, to amend it to remove certain properties that are operating under the authorities through tax breaks.
No, we had a whole discussion. If you go back
Yeah,
to
but
the,
that was not the consensus of the task force. The task force was to get the same bill amended in a short period of time with the legislative session, which ends on June 11th. And we've got maybe 15 days left of actual legislative session to be able to get this done. I don't recall consensus of the task force to the intent is still the same.
no,
It's just removing the very properties that, well, you may have actually worked on while you worked there as the economic developer for the Bridgeport Authority. Those are the only changes that are going through, and that was what the message we got from the governor's office, that they wouldn't support it with those authority properties in there that receive tax breaks for bringing in business to the authority. It's the only change.
yeah, no, we had a whole discussion about
But it wasn't a consent. I'm not disagreeing that we had a discussion, but ultimately you ended up getting up leaving and we spoke about it a little after the fact. And what we want to do is kind of take baby steps in the approach here, get what we can now, and then work with the authority, as Dan and I called it in a media event, a partnership with the authority to be able to bring about additional properties for relief to the city.
Yeah, I don't think that the state of New York's going to pass a bill that allows the city to tax their property. I think Dean, you talked about the superiority of the county, I believe. I think the state's superior to us as well. And that's why we had talked about not taking that approach and going, basically requesting again, the original resolution that was adopted by the council was to request a payment in lieu of taxes for vacant land. So I don't think it'll pass. I'll vote for this just so I can't be blamed when it doesn't pass. It doesn't really matter to me at this point. I just don't think it's, has any chance of passing. Unfortunately,
I mean, we couldn't get a simple.
If we took the time and we amended it to be a pilot payment.
From your last meeting to this, the change that happened in this bill was to exclude the Bridgeport Authority. That's the only change that I know of. But I don't think the intent of the bill has changed, like Councilman Powers mentioned. So
I think in the end, if we get a payment, it's going to end up being a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes. That's the understanding. Whether they call it being able to tax state property or not. At this point in time, as Powers suggested, it's a little too late to ask for, linguistic changes. I think we should move ahead with this right now, see where it gets, see what happens this legislative session. Hopefully we can get it, and I understand the state's concern about removing the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority, and we all actually ought to support that. I remember before I became a counselor, and I'll bet you Sam was on the council, there used to be a little ditty called the Empire State Zone. Yeah. And if a business moved into a town, you got a tax break for like 10 years or something like that. And that's something that we've always talked about or wanting to bring back when you look at other communities to attract a business. And so I look at the Bridgeport Authority as a partner of Ogdensburg. And if they can give a business a tax break to come in here and provide jobs and something like that, then that's the way I'm looking at it. And I got no problem with that. Would I like to see taxes? Sure. And sometimes you got to take what you can get, and sometimes taking jobs is what we can get. And I don't want to ruffle too many feathers, and I certainly don't want to lose the opportunity to get some money from the state if they're at least looking at it. And we know the governor's office is looking at this, and I'm very thankful about that. So I'd like to move forward with this bill as is. And if we got to make changes, we'll make changes later.
And again, as I mentioned, it's surely a foundation to work on. And to John's point, will it pass? Who knows? It's a funky town down here in Albany. There's always budget was a month late. You've got legislative session that's ramping up. Everybody's starting to jockey around. I'm not saying it's a grand slam. I like it better than I did in our original home rule with our half a penny, when we knew that we weren't going to get anything back then, and then ultimately we end up getting it done. I like our chances better in the interim with this one, to be able to start with some baby steps to be able to go along. Communications I've had with members of the leadership and the governor's office is positive right now. They recognize the plight the city of Ogdensburg is in, and they recognize the value that the previous pilot programs helped other communities. So it's a good start.
How many of these businesses, Dan, have been running on these tax? They don't pay the taxes.
I'm not sure. John could probably answer that.
And how many buildings down there does the authority actually own, and how many have they sold off over the years to these people? And these people still get these tax breaks? And you say they're partners. Well, all these businesses that are in Ogdensburg are our partners, not just the Port Authority. Everyone is paying the taxes and seeing the increase in assessments and all the stuff that comes with it. So the partnership is this entire city and every business in it, not just the Port Authority and those people that don't have to pay down there for the last 20 or 30 years.
I look at the people.
They pay, Steve. They just don't pay at the rate that many other entities do. That's why state offers up tax breaks. John can probably attest to this a little bit more as he's probably very versed in it. So, I mean, that's the recruitment and the marketing to be able to bring in businesses at a reduced rate of taxation. And it's not done by the city. And to a degree, it is a partnership with every business in the city. And the Bridge and Port Authority is an authority that operates under the direction of the governor. So with that being said, that is a separate partnership to a degree, my opinion.
Would you explain it to them?
I just look at the businesses in town that, the people that run the place, people that run Hosmer's. I mean, they work really, in my opinion, those are the partners, and they're the ones that are paying the taxes on top of that. Some pretty exorbitant taxes, and now exorbitant revaluations. And, I think it's just short-sighted to say, well, they're our partner. Everybody's kumbaya. It doesn't, that's just not how things work. That's just simplistic, I think. I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying you have to look at it differently, because there are entities down there that haven't paid a dime in taxes, city, county, or school for 20 years. And they, if not through this legislation, then they ought to understand. I don't think it's a state law, but they ought to be making payment in lieu of taxes, because it's a public entity that is renting and making money off of private businesses. And the state, that's just not good policy, and the state doesn't follow that policy. That's why IDAs make payment in lieu of taxes. There's nobody else that does this. Canton doesn't do it, Potsdam doesn't do it, and ask Pat Kelly. Pat Kelly rents out space in Canton, Potsdam. They all make pilot payments. So
they're separate entity operated they're separate entity that don't operate under the authority aspect, to a certain degree. That's why the board has its own board at the Bridge and Port. John, excuse me. For starters, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not. But what I'm saying is it's a good start. It's a good concept, and that's why I jumped all over it when you proposed it, because this is how it works down here.
I just think people should have an open mind. Bridge and Port is our partner. So aren't all the business people in town that pay taxes, and I think you should have an open mind about, the payment in lieu of taxes from them. If you want to exempt them from the bill, fine, I'll vote for it. And I think it's written the wrong way too.
I think it's a baby step, and I think we just need to support it right now. There's no doubt every business is our partner in Ogdensburg. I mean, who would deny that? So, but
it's not the point. The point is
And
there's a lot of business partners.
everybody's tax-free all of a sudden.
And they also own hundreds of acres of land that has sat there for 50 years with no development on it.
Would be great.
And they actually unanimously voted to deem that surplus and to sell it at auction before I left, before I retired. And none of that's moved. And I mean, that's another issue that needs to be addressed, but
it's the same issue that we're addressing here with the state. The trade-off for years was they're going to provide us with a state hospital with good paying jobs that they turn around and spend money on businesses in Ogdensburg, and now that the state hospital has slowly over the years gone away, then we don't have that. And that's why we're asking for money. Bridge and Port Authority is still trying to give us jobs, to spend money on local businesses and housing and things like that. I think the conversation is redundant, and we simply pass this resolution and see what we can get. And then bring it up later and, move forward with more.
That's it. Go ahead.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reish,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
approved.
Now, we have old business, and does anyone have any old business to discuss?
Yeah, on the assessment, so I mean, I recognize that it's more revenue for the city government, but I just think a 28.3% increase, now that I have that number, which I got last night, I guess it was, the council doesn't have any ability to do anything once the roll's filed, and you're saying it's not filed, correct?
This is at the tentative roll is being filed. So it's not the final assessment roll. Final is filed in August.
Yeah, I know.
So we need to go through the process. That's what I'm asking, to let the process.
I'm still in favor of not accepting the tentative roll since it hasn't been filed yet. I make that motion. I don't know if there's a second or not.
Well, $250,000 investment, and we don't have another $250,000 to do it again. So I think we should let the process work itself out, and maybe we'll be also in a position to lower taxes and offset it. We did lower taxes $1.1 million on the city side, and like I say,
Yeah, the concept of lowering taxes is great, but if your home's valued at 100,000, it goes to 200,000. So you take 100,000, that's 55 hours, 1,000, you're going to be paying another $5,500 combined in taxes. Even if we drop ours $3, they're still paying around 5,000 or whatever that number may be. So because the values increase so much, they're getting whacked for these combined taxes. So even if the tax rates drop, I doubt the county will drop theirs. The school doesn't have a history of dropping theirs. And theirs will be adopted before this is finalized. So I don't see that happening either.
Do you have a number for what the $367 million, if it stayed, what they're gonna do by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning on this roll?
This would.
Okay, right now it's 367 million.
Right.
So if that's just where it stays, how much does the city get more in taxes if we use today's rate?
I don't
And
know.
how much county tax based on their rate and how much school tax based on their rate? Just so that people know who's actually, where their money's going.
I don't have that information, but I will ask, Andrea, do you have the information?
You know, those three, whatever the rate is, times three.
Oh, the comptroller. I'll ask the comptroller to answer that question.
Using the $367 million taxable assessed value, if we use the current 2023 tax rate, which is 16.5876, and I only have this calculated for the city, the tax levy would be $6,088,599.
So about 1.3 million more. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
If we look at what the budget had for a tax assessment this year in 2023, that was $4,746,350. If we want that same exact levy, then the tax rate would be 12.9308.
So for the other three, the combined rate, it's over $4 million that people will be paying for all three taxing. It's an extra $4 million, probably more closer to $4.5 million.
If you have done the math on that, I have not. I only did the city's perspective.
Yeah, it's 80,000 times 50 to 55. I don't know what the rates exactly are. It's at least 46, probably closer to 55. So it's closer to 55. So it's about $4.4 million.
The city will also be needing to review, in light of the new assessments, their constitutional tax limit and also their 2% tax limitation. So regarding the constitutional tax limit, it's very preliminary to say where we would be because a lot of it can't be determined until the 2024 budget is built. So if we look at this without exclusions, because exclusions are the major thing that give us that window in between the 100% and below, using just a rough calculation as to where we are today, the CTL without exclusions under today's tax rate would be 99.8% used. So if we lower it to the $12 million to get the same taxable tax levy, we would be using 78% of that constitutional tax limit. That is without exclusions. So
We're as high as 99 in last year's budget.
without exclusions.
Yeah,
So
but
last year you had a total exclusion of 1.99 million. And a lot of that comes from the sewer fund in the use of the sewer fund balance. So a lot of this I give to you very, very prematurely because the exclusions are a major factor in the use, the rate of that CTL.
85% or 75% after the reductions in taxes that we did and the exclusions that are
For what year, Councilor Reish?
this year.
1 second. So last year, the 2023 budget, percent of tax limit exhausted without exclusions was 49.48%. And I'm sorry, that's with exclusions was 49.48%. And without exclusions was 82.51.
Yeah, 82, that's what I thought, not 99. I thought you said 99.
I did the calculation for 2024 looking ahead.
Okay.
And that's where that 99.8% falls in because it's based on a 5-year average of taxable assessed value. So you still have only 1 year of the increased assessments within that calculation.
And next year's calculations of exclusion would include the $40 million or $35 million for, no, the water plant, the sewer plant doesn't get, is it an exclusion?
No, no, there's a revenue producing improvement debt does not get excluded. What does get factored into the exclusion is the use of fund balance, which we can't keep doing in the sewer fund year after year. So that is a very complex calculation when we come into using exclusions, but we cannot do that until the 2024 budget is drafted.
But it's an overall increase of $4 million. Is that what you had?
Combined.
Just for the three of them.
4.5, yeah.
So basically the answer that nobody has is it would be 1.3 million for the city, 2.6 for the school system, and 1.1 for the county.
Yep.
That's
Tax
where,
rate stayed the same.
if it stayed the same as today, what would,
If it stays the same as today,
with what you're saying with the exclusions and stuff, the shell game will start coming up, and then they'll, with or without exclusions, and then we'll pop that 2% tax cap off, and then you'll see the taxes go up 6, 7, 8, 10, 15% in the years to come. That's
your rough 2% tax cap is not an extraordinary amount of increase of taxes that you can do if you do not want to exceed the tax cap. Again, that information, part of the calculation that goes into that isn't available from the Office of State Comptroller until July of 2023. So we can't even calculate it. But if we use some of those tax levy growth factors based on prior year, we're looking at a modest increase of overall tax without exceeding the 2% tax cap. So there's definitely some hard decisions that need to be made in conjunction with the crafting of the 2024 tax budget.
And we still have that monkey on our back of the 2.1 million that we talked about deficit early in the year. Is that still hanging here?
That is
or
fair,
did that go
yes.
away?
Very alive.
No, that did not go away.
So even if at one, getting to 1.3 more, we're still 700,000 in the hole, and everything went up $4 million.
No.
Yes. Yeah, at today's rate, if you just use the numbers that they said.
I don't predict us seeing it at today's rate. That was one of the whole purposes of doing this. As Mayor explained earlier, we're trying to drop that rate down to about 12.
She just said you can't do it because you'll be at 99% without your exclusions.
No, I'll back up. For 2024, without exclusion, if you leave the rate the same as the 2023 rate, which is a $16, roughly $1,000, you will have used 99.8% of your constitutional tax limit without exclusions.
Which is why we want to drop the rate.
Right, well, we've padded the exclusions enough to, with the sewage treatment plant, they'll take care of it, I'm sure. So it's,
Is that because the roll went up by 28% and you added $80 million to it? So that's, you go from 82 to 99?
Correct. Your assessed value goes up, your average is relatively unchanged, so you end up using much more of that. Your levy becomes much larger based on the increase of assessments.
Thanks.
Which is why we have to lower the tax rate. We should.
There are definitely some decisions to make.
Yes.
that,
I mean, that was one of the reasons, you know, I think.
yeah, but I just don't want to say to these people that are sitting out here that, you know, you're going to see a tax decrease in that, because that's what we really think that's going to happen, because it's going to make you feel better right now, because
Tax
it's
rate
gone up here right
decrease.
now, and then we're going to blow it from 16 to 12. And that's like,
That's a tax rate decrease, not a tax.
well, a tax rate decrease.
Right.
Well, that's still coming out of their pocket. That's where the money's coming from. That's where the 4 million is coming from. So I mean, cut it whatever way you want. But don't tell them that this is what's going to happen, because it's not. Because it's very well may not.
People will be paying more for taxes. We all will.
You know, you're sitting at this table. Since I've sat here, I've been pro non-raising taxes, and I don't plan on raising them. If I can do anything, you got my vote for 12, but I got a sneaking suspicion when she opens those books, it's not going to be pretty interesting. And this $1.3 million that we're getting after this $4 million horse is really, it benefits, I guess, 3 different entities, but doesn't benefit the people.
I think we're on to new business. Does anyone have any new business?
You know, we had some people speak to the eclipse tonight, and they asked that the city start a task force. And I think there's some very interested people who would probably and should probably meet with the city manager soon and maybe get a task force going. Any citizens that are there welcome. It sounds like a great event. Even if it's a 3-hour event, it would be something that if we're right in the path, that sounds fun, and I'll take anything that comes our way. So
Might be something good marketing from some kind of marketing aspect to bring people to Ogdensburg for a period of time.
I saw, I believe it was out west, and everybody was out there to see it somewhere out in west. I'll donate John Reese's time to help you. But thank you for.
That thing would be visible like from Maine to Ohio or just Ogdensburg?
There's a band that goes.
Would you mind speaking into the microphone, just so anybody listening remotely doesn't miss out on your knowledge?
I don't know how knowledgeable I am. But there's a path, and it's a pretty narrow path, and it goes basically from Texas across the country up through New York. Not too much in Canada, so most Canadians will miss this one, as well as anybody in New England, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you know, many neighboring states will miss this, the totality of this event. They will see a partial eclipse on that day. But there are cities in Texas that are now starting to make big plans, and there, you know, cities across the country that are in the path of totality that are making plans. There are cities in the North Country that are starting to make plans. And just, you know, to your point, I think restaurants and, you know, any kind of venue that has any outdoor space should be hosting viewing parties. It could, you know, they could have themed menus, you know, and things like that.
a lunar plunge in the St. Lawrence River.
That's right.
April 4th.
Can't look at it.
8th.
You can't look at it with the naked eye though.
No, you know, so that's, yeah, you know, there are specialized glasses that you can use to view the eclipse. The thing with a total solar eclipse, though, that's really interesting is that during totality, when basically there's a black hole in the sky and it's just surrounded by the corona, you actually can view that with your naked eye because there's no direct sunlight coming.
I think direct subs would be a prime.
I think so
prime
too.
donor.
Yeah.
Now we can give out some ham and cheese. Okay. I think we're on items for discussion.
During
Items for discussion, is that
Yes.
what we're heading for?
during the budget. Nobody will second it. During the budget discussions, Shane, we took out the Vector truck. I just wonder if someone's looking for money for a grant. There's a lot of money in water and sewer these days. I haven't looked into it. I'll try to, but I didn't know staff was looking into whether a big piece of equipment like that, was it around 400,000? Yeah. I mean, someone should talk with somebody on the federal government level to find out if they could help us out with that purchase, so the sewer fund will have to take a hit for it next year.
Okay, I'll look into it. I just missed the first part of your conversation. What equipment was this?
It's a large Vector truck that's used to clean sewers out. It's about 400,000+. And it was in last year's budget, but we took it out to save money, and we agreed to apply for a grant for it. So I'm just suggesting, thank you.
So, Sean, you did a great job, your crew, your department. Shane. I have a Sean I work with too. So Shane, and you did that with your old sweeper? You still had not got your?
No, the new, I just spoke with them today. The new one will be finished built the 13th of May.
They had to put that all together. It was all just rusted out the bottom. They had to refurbish it all to.
That's the street sweeper, not the Vector.
Yeah, what?
That's the street sweeper.
Yes, that's what I was talking.
Yep.
Yeah, you always do a nice job with that.
Yep.
Appreciate it, starting early and everything. It makes,
Yep.
makes the city look a lot
Next year.
better.
So we bought that current Vector since I've been on council.
Yep, I think we bought it in 2014 or 16 it was bought.
They don't last long, huh?
About 10 years is the lifespan. They recommend every 5 to 6 years to get a good trade-in value.
Do we get a good trade-in value?
I think they offered us last year around 100,000.
I'm not looking to create any more work for anybody in planning or anything, but I believe there's actual money in the state budget for additional water infrastructure issues as well. Water and sewer might be worthy of a look there as well.
Shane, a couple of times I've noticed a decrease in water pressure at my house. I've noticed it like 3, 4, 5 times. Is everything good?
Yeah, we haven't had any issues around that way. I mean, maybe your screens could be dirty in your sink or something. I haven't heard of anything over that way.
Tell him the truth. He's late on his water bill. And that's true. So I have a Shane or Sean at my other job I work with, and I always call him your name and his name. They're too close together. Okay. And I think we have some citizen participation again. Anyone would like to come up? You have 2 minutes.
Hi, thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Kearney Copeland. I live at 1824 Ford Street. I'm part of the newly formed Citizens Advisory Group, and we are proposing doing a citywide cleanup on the weekend of June 17th and 18th, I believe. It's not showing up here properly. To encourage residents to clean up not just the trails and parks, but also their yards in order to beautify the city. Yes, we want to host this event June 16th and 17th. So that during that time, Ogdensburg residents can receive assistance and encouragement to clean up their property, spruce up their houses and yards, and make changes that will improve our city's overall appeal. We hope to partner with the county for hazmat collection and e-waste recycling. We'll reach out to the appropriate city communities, Pride and Beautification, for example, for support. We'll ask local businesses to partner with us. Finally, we will be seeking volunteers to come forward from the community to help us plan and execute the Great Ogdensburg Cleanup. We are asking for the city's help to promote this event through the city webpage and Facebook.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Michael Tooley again. With regards to the reassessment and taxes, I would encourage you to focus more on the tax levy that supports each of the governmental bodies, not so much on the tax rate. The tax rate is purely a mathematical calculation of the total tax revenue divided back into the assessments. Now, with regards again to the school district, the budget they have proposed for 2023-24 calls for a tax levy of $10.6 million. It's the same tax levy they have had in their budget for the past 3 years. The fact that Ogdensburg's assessments might go up 28% is not going to generate 1 penny more of revenue for the school district. Okay, their levy is going to be $10.6 million. When they adopt their tax warrant in August, it's going to be $10.6 million. Okay, the mathematics will show the tax rate will go down. All right, so the school does not see a windfall because of this significant increase in assessment. I don't know how many times I have to repeat that, why that isn't understood. But what will happen, as I did demonstrate showed you, I think in my last presentation, is that the percentage of the school tax that the city of Ogdensburg will pay will likely go up because it's based on the percentage of their total assessment versus the entire total assessment, and when you include Oswegatchie. And it's likely, if it stays at 28%, that's going to be upwards of a $300,000 shift. For people in Oswegatchie will pay $300,000 less. Ogdensburg will pay $300,000 more, which is why I suggested last meeting some means to try to cap this or spread this assessment increase out over a number of years would be beneficial to the city. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Manager, councilors. First of all, I want to say thank you for your commitment to the safety and security of our most prized possession, our children. Your vote tonight speaks volumes to that. We will put those officers to good use, both from an education standpoint and relationship building standpoint, but also to a means of keeping our buildings safe, all three of them at the same time. So I do want to echo Mr. Tooley in saying that the district has not collected $1 more in levy from the citizens of Ogdensburg for the last 3 years, and will continue that into the 4th year. Tax rate will go down. That is a given. We are not collecting any additional money. Having said that, if an individual homeowner pays more in taxes, that is 100% due to the increased and assessed value of all the properties. That is the only thing that brings it up. And the school district, unfortunately, has no control over that. So I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Is there anyone else? Anyone remotely?
The first individual is registered as Brenda Hill, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted. Appears your line is open. Hi, we can hear you.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked at the last council meeting. When are we going to have more police officers on the street, preferably the drug officers, to clean up the drugs in Ogdensburg? Still nothing's been done about the house across the street. There's still a lot of traffic over there. There's still druggies walking by my house, acting like they are so high. And I'm worried about when my grandson comes up here, how am I going to explain to him that this guy's walking down the street, swinging his arms, looking behind him, and looking at the sky and stuff like that? How am I going to explain that to him when he is here? And nobody should have to watch this. Nobody should have to do this. When are we going to have more police officers on the street to take care of the drugs. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Been a lot of chatter tonight about every other person that's been up to that podium. I just wondering when I can get an answer to my question. Guess it's not going to be tonight. Thank you.
We do not have a need for executive session, so I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Adjourned.